So, good morning and welcome, Dr. Jeffrey Sachs, once again. And thank you for taking time out so early morning to be with us.
My pleasure.
So, without much ado, let me get straight into the fireside chat with Dr. Jeffrey Sachs. Dr. Sachs, in your paper, The Pathway to Viksit Bharat by 2047, you have talked about the goal of 5% GDP growth per annum and 28,000 per capita of income of Indians by 2047. I request you to please provide us your insights on how part of the whole thing and share with us your insights on what should government of India do and how to achieve 5% GDP growth per annum and 28,000 per capita by 2047. Specifically, what are the top three policy interventions required for this? Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, and wonderful to be with you. And it's very timely. Of course, our talk the last couple of days have been rather shocking, I would say. And they exemplify, to my mind, why we are having this discussion. The world is changing very fast. The standard modes of thinking will not be sufficient. India's role in the world economy will be enormous. Measured at purchasing power parity, India is already the third largest economy in the world. It will almost surely overtake the United States sometime in the next 30 years to become the second largest economy in the world, and could overtake China to become the largest economy in the world, given the demographic changes ahead. As everybody knows, India's population will continue to rise gradually to reach a peak of probably around 1.7 billion people, whereas China's population is going to decline rather significantly. And by the end of this century, to be well under 1 billion people. So India is going to be the most populous country of the world by far, not simply on par with China, but much larger than China, maybe twice the size of China's economy, population. And so India's role in the world will be huge. What happened yesterday, of course, with the tariffs showed that India's, I would say, the awareness of India in Washington, for example, is drastically lower than reality. The way the Trump administration has treated India is shocking and disgraceful, but also unbelievably wrong-headed from a strategic point of view. And one of the things that I would recommend out of the process that we're discussing is a higher profile for India's corporate leadership in the world. That will come anyway, but also helping to shape the new multipolar world, which I think is vital for India. And I'll just end this little prefatory remark by saying that when I was in India in the spring, I think there was still a lot of optimism that India would be the new partner with the United States to, in a way, replace China's role in U.S. supply chains. And I said I thought that was naive, that it wasn't going to work that way, that the United States would not be open to India really any more than it was open to China. And I think that the events of the last days illustrate the challenge that India faces. It's not an insurmountable challenge, but it means that conventional ideas about geopolitics don't work anymore. We're really in a new world. It's a multipolar world. The BRICS is extremely important, and that's why there's been a flurry of diplomatic activity within the BRICS in the last 2 days. I've spoken with leaders all over the BRICS nations, and they're speaking with each other, and that's also very important. So, to come to your question, of course, India's rapid development, like any country's rapid development, is basically a process of long-term investment. And the most important investments for any uh, fast-growing economy are in human skills, in physical infrastructure, and in business. So three big categories of investment. India needs big investments in all three areas, of course. We're speaking together with the business community today, but fundamentally for India's future will be a massive upgrading of education, of skill training, of educational attainment and completion levels at quality at all levels, uh, and a massive increase of infrastructure. I had to check just now whether India had any fast rail at all, for example. India has, of course, a historically famous rail system, but at least according to the source I just looked at, no fast rail at all compared to China's 50,000 kilometers of fast rail.
We
That's
have
a
we
lot.
have a project of bullet train, which is taking up.
Yes, exactly. I know that. So there's one project, one corridor that is under discussion or under construction, but there's a lot of infrastructure catching up to do, and a lot of infrastructure leapfrogging to do.
I agree.
So, yeah, so I would say that the basic answer to the question is to chart out a high investment pathway for India for the next quarter century. This is the essence of rapid development. It is the essence of China's achievement in rapid development over a 40-year period. Very high investment rates in all three categories, human capital, physical infrastructure, and business capital. It was heavily planned, and in the China case, and I think India needs more planning, not less planning, even though it escaped from the planned structures of the past, which were very bureaucratic. India needs a planned pathway for the next quarter century because there are lots of transformations ahead that are quite complex and that are a mix of public and private transformations. So, to achieve this very high level of investment, it seems to me many things need to be uh, taken into account. First, India will be a major innovating economy, and it needs to, of course, upgrade and accelerate the R&D. This has been the hallmark of China's uh, development for the last quarter century, especially the Made in China 2025 program, which was so remarkably successful. India needs such an R&D pathway can be at the center of industrial transformation. Of course, India, like any country, needs a strategy for uh, energy system transformation and for climate resilience. India, sad to say, is really ground zero for global climate change, with extraordinary vulnerability on the one side, and of course, tremendous potential for a massive transformation of the energy sector itself. This needs to be planned, actually as clear as it needs to be to this date. A third area that obviously needs planning is what is
Discuss.
exemplified by the last 48 hours, and that is India's place in the world economic system, uh, which will become very important, very export oriented, and there needs to be a strategy. If I may say, the strategy up until uh, recently was to rely heavily on the United States. I think maybe I'm overinterpreting, but that was certainly the gist that I got from many, many discussions that India's export growth to the U.S. would boom. This is very unlikely to be the case. And I think the last 48 hours exemplify this. The U.S. is becoming protectionist uh, quite seriously. That's not going to change anytime soon. Europe is quite protectionist and will become more so. And so the major economic growth outlets for exports will be the rest of the world: China, uh, Russia, Africa, Latin America, the Arab world, and so forth. What's the strategy for that, for India? What will the new multipolar world look like? What will the new world trade system look like? How should it take shape in a post-US led world? So these are questions that I think need to be addressed. And I don't feel that there are solid answers for these questions in the details right now. So I hope I'm not here under the wrong apprehension that I was going to give you a detailed roadmap. I don't think it exists exactly. I think it needs to be made, um, but made rather consciously. Uh, the government has, of course, Niti Aayog and other institutions. I think it needs the corporate sector engaged in a pretty uh, far-reaching uh, search for uh, pathways right now. In other words, this process needs to be deepened. It needs to be uh, extended in time horizon to mid-century. It needs to consider this range of topics from integrating new technologies, AI, biotech, and so forth, changing global economic structures, energy transformation, climate change, and climate resilience into a holistic approach. And that's what I hope the corporate leadership will help to bring about.
So thank you. I mean, I completely agree with you that physical infrastructure, human resource, and business capital, these are the three areas where the high investment is required. So this is what the government of India, you in your own wisdom, have suggested should be doing. Now let me come to the role of the corporate India. I sincerely believe that private sector is the real wealth creator. So how leaders of corporate India should gear themselves and their companies in helping India attain these goals.
I think that my main message is that there are two roles. One is uh, being being creative, dynamic entrepreneurs, and of course, a lot of that is happening right now. India's uh, very strong economic performance over the last 15 years comes from major corporate groups doing many pioneering things. And so India's corporate sector is already playing a major role. The second area that I recommend is the vision of the future, to play a role in the public discourse, to engage with expertise, with government, with um, trying to look ahead as carefully as possible to make policy recommendations that go beyond lobbying and go beyond particular short-term corporate needs or interests to long-term systemic transformation. And this is why I made the analogy earlier in the year with another corporate group from that started more than a half century ago, the Club of Rome, where the idea was that business leaders in Europe got together to say we need a new vision of the future. In that case, it was especially around environmental sustainability and economic development. But the idea was to bring together top business leaders, top social thinkers, uh, academic experts, and government leaders that could think together at a big scale. And I think that this is the other area where India's remarkable corporate class can play a role. I feel that there's more that can be done. That's my sense. I stand to be corrected because I'm sure there are a thousand things that I don't know about that are going on. But I do believe that taking the big view, trying to look ahead a quarter century, trying to take a view of India, whether it's 2047 or mid-century, 2050, however it's phrased, and asking at this moment, what are the powerful pathways that need to be upgraded or invented or reinvented to achieve what we want is very timely.
No, thanks. I think from private sector, the take home, as I think, is the developing the dynamic leadership, as you said. Also make policy recommendations, not kind of lobbying, but long-term systemic transformation pathways. That brings me to your third point that you mentioned in your paper, sir, about the education. I also believe that ultimately the people who will be achieving these goals that we are talking about and the HR talent. So I feel that India has a demographic dividend opportunity, but the challenge is in the education and skill development is very, very complex. And one of the papers says that the median age currently is 28.4, and by 2030, India will have 1.04 billion working age people in this age group. So, how can India strategize in the area of education and skill development to leverage this demographic dividend to become Viksit Bharat?
One thing I would recommend doing rather quickly is a serious benchmarking of India's educational performance right now against that of China, Europe, the United States, to really understand that question in full. My sense is that India would not come up to where you would like it to be uh, right now. Um, of course, there are outstanding uh, achievements in education, outstanding Indian scientists. The world is filled with outstanding Indian engineers. But if you look at, I say, the median performance of the education system, it is not up to par with what it should be. If you compare Indian student 15-year-old performance on a standardized basis internationally, say the Program on International Student Achievement of the OECD, all of the top countries in the PISA are now in East Asia, one after another. Singapore, China, Japan, Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong. It's amazing, actually. Uh, India is not high on that list. Dropout rates are still surprisingly very high in India. Completion rates, even for upper secondary, are not what they need to be. We know that both at the state level and at the union level, there was for a long time an underinvestment in it, even in basic education. At the university level, there are many new universities starting in India or expanding. This is very important. We need to get Indian universities into absolutely the top tier of the world's rankings. This is feasible, but it's not quite there yet. You know, in the US, uh, Indians living in the United States or Indian Americans are the absolute top ranked professional group in the United States, the highest performance educationally. If that performance were matched in India as a whole, everything we're saying would be would be solved. So this is something that we need to accomplish. Uh, if I could say at a personal level, my daughter just got married to a young man who is half Indian descent,
Oh,
His family, his mother's from Calcutta, father is American, and so we were just celebrating at the wedding, and half the wedding it seemed was from Calcutta. It was a huge, huge family gathering, but everybody had multiple senior degrees. Everybody. There wasn't anybody that wasn't somehow six PhDs. It was incredible.
Oh,
But
God.
yeah, yeah.
how lovely,
But
how heartening.
yeah,
And we call such people as PIOs, people of Indian origin.
yeah, there you go. So
Yeah.
we're coming to Calcutta to celebrate in December, by the way. So
Wow.
it's yeah, it's absolutely wonderful. But I would say let's get this India-wide, this astounding accomplishment, because truly the way that technology is evolving, we got to run ahead of the machines with human skills, and this becomes more urgent than ever. Uh, Old okay jobs will no longer exist 10 or 20 years from now. It's going to be a different labor force, and it's going to absolutely require high skills of every worker.
Thank you and feel grateful to you for giving such insightful responses to my question.